Well, it is a freaky and a free phone Friday edition of the Schilling Show. Special upcoming program announcement, program-related announcement. Stay with us. We'll have that for you soon. It's always exciting here on the Schilling Show. Hey, one of the big issues that's been in the national dialogue over the past couple of weeks, and really in some ways it's been in the national dialogue for longer than that, but really brought to light by some allegations the president has made regarding wiretapping, then some WikiLeaks disclosures about the CIA. So I want to try to get to the bottom of this, and we welcome Shawn Tuma, an attorney and cybersecurity expert, here to the Schilling Show. Is the CIA spying on me? And we could all ask that question. Hey, Shawn, welcome to the Schilling Show.
Hey there. Thank you for having me.
All right. So what did we learn from WikiLeaks? Can you distill it for us? Because obviously there was a lot of information. I'm not sure everybody really gleaned what there is to get from that.
Yeah, what we learned is what many of us already suspected, which is that the CIA has incredibly advanced intelligence, surveillance, and spying tools and techniques that they can use. Many of them are designed to emulate, and by using the same things that people like the Russians use in other countries, so that it gives the false impression that those countries are doing things. And they have the ability to use what we call the Internet of Things, IoT, like smartphones, TVs, Google listening device, the Alexa or what have you, that they can use those things to listen in on and record and obtain information about people. And that's not really a very, it's very alarming for the general public to hear something like that. Mm-hmm. But it goes to the point you just made where you said, is the CIA listening to you? Probably not. They're probably not listening to you. They're probably not listening to me. And if someone is getting listened in on by the CIA, they probably have a lot bigger concerns than just that, because they only go after very high-value targets that have truly international impacting type information.
Well, there's really not, Shawn, enough personnel or time in the day to monitor every person. But what I heard, and I'd like you to confirm this if you know, is that they're basically collecting all of this information, even if they're not listening in on it. They have massive storage of emails and cell phone calls and who knows what else that they're just keeping archived, and then they can go into that and search it if they want to at a later time. Is that what's going on?
That does happen. I believe it happens more often by the NSA than the CIA. I think the CIA is much more strategic in their approach. The NSA certainly is gathering that information and has it in databases where they can go back and access it. Now, whether it's accessible by both branches or agencies, I'm not really sure on that. Usually they don't cross over a whole lot. But there's, it's like anything else in this realm. It's certainly possible.
We're talking with Shawn Tuma, an attorney and a cybersecurity expert, about the CIA and this recent spying story. So let's talk about individuals who are concerned about this, because we heard that this software was into all of the operating systems. It's into Linux, Mac OS, into Windows, it's into iOS, it's into Android. So all of the devices that we use likely have been compromised at the root level. Is there anything that we could do to protect ourselves when using those devices and OSs?
Well, there are some things. It's not the CIA that we all have to worry about as much as it is the common criminals. And now that these techniques are making their way out into the wild, we can anticipate that the criminal organizations will use them. And one of the things, there were a couple of securely encrypted apps like WhatsApp and Signal, that it was revealed they can't break into the actual stream of communication. But what they do is they get into the device itself. Now, when we think of terms of hacking, we think of sophisticated, North Korea taking down Sony through James Bond-like code kind of stuff. But the reality is over 90% of all attacks, including by these agencies like the CIA or state-sponsored, they usually start with failures of simple things, basic things. The most common of all those is what we call phishing emails. That's the email you get that has a link embedded in it, and they're disguising it to be something other than what it really is, because they want you to click on that link, which will download malware that will give them access to your network. or they have attachments or things like that you download, and then they have access. So learning to educate yourself and spot phishing emails and social engineering scams is a huge step. The next is passwords. They know the statistics and the numbers, which is that most people do not use good passwords. They use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or password, or something like that, and so they know to try that. So use good complex passwords and don't use the same passwords across all of your accounts, because when there's a compromise, those passwords then get linked to an account and published on certain sites. And then the other thing is your security questions. Many of these, what we call hacks, are really just educated guessing. And as you know, you can go to a lot of accounts, and your security questions, if you can answer them the right way, you can reset the account. A lot of people use stuff that can be looked up on Google or on their Facebook page or LinkedIn or what have you for their questions. And so that's another one. And really another big one is multi-factor authentication. That has been shown to reduce these types of incidents by, almost 100%, because it requires 2 steps and makes you a much harder target than someone else. And all that really is it means instead of having one level to prove you are who you say you are, which is typically a password, you're now required to use 2 levels. So you'd have a password, and then maybe you get a text message that you have to click on, or maybe you have to use your thumbprint or something like that. It's just another means of proving you are who you are.
We've got a couple minutes left with cybersecurity expert and attorney Shawn Tuma. Let's go to the phones and say hello to Chris. Chris, you're on with Shawn Tuma. Go right ahead.
Thanks, Rob. Shawn, I'm concerned about my government having my information because the same thing might happen to me that's happening to Trump. You get people within these organizations that end up hating somebody because of their ideology and then compromise national security in order to try to bring them down. That's what I think we really have to worry about, is this idea that, our political enemies may end up going against us because they don't know what it's like to be American. And I'll just hang up and listen. Thanks.
Chris, thank you.
Well, Chris, I can tell you I share in your concern 100%, because that's the big fear we all have is when, intelligence agencies, we need the intelligence for national security, and used for a proper purpose. Look, there's no telling how many lives of Americans these sort of techniques have saved. But the problem is when those tools and those people become politicized, as we have now seen. I mean, it's created a lot of consternation among people about the whole WikiLeaks thing, because for months we've heard this narrative, it has to be the Russians because it looked like the Russians, and guess what? The CIA said it's the Russians, so we have to trust them. And now, through this revelation, we hear, the CIA emulates the Russians, and the CIA's whole job is espionage and, deception. And so for those who sympathize with President Trump's situation, it's like, wow, okay, you brought all this to light. But the downside is what kind of harm has this done to our national security? And it's substantial, because now, the terrorists, the people we're trying to protect against, all know these techniques, and they're going to find defensive ways to avoid them. So the politicizing of intelligence is a huge threat to all of us. And our privacy, we don't have that anymore. I mean, all that information is out there and available. The question now is what are the checks to keep it from being misused?
Finally, we've got about a minute left, Shawn. I wanted to ask you, I know there's software on certain computers. There's one that I was running on my Mac called Umbrella that purports to let the user know every time the camera or microphone is accessed. Can we even trust that those pieces of software are not somehow compromised?
Not at all. An amateur, some kid in his parents' basement might not know how to disable that, but a truly skilled hacker, like someone working for the CIA or criminal gangs or what have you, they know how to get in, how to circumvent that, and you're sitting there trusting in software that it's going to blink at you, and it never will.
Shawn Tuma, if people want to get more information or be in touch with you online, tell us how, please.
The best way is my blog. It's www.shawn, S-H-A-W-N-E, Tuma, T-U-M-A.com.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for enlightening us and for joining us today on The Schilling Show. I appreciate it, Shawn.
It is my pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, 12:45 here on The Schilling Show. Let's go to the break, and when we come back on the other side, Casey Johnson's going to be talking to us about the new book, The Campus Rape Frenzy, what's behind all of this and the Obama administration's rape culture narrative. Stay tuned.